Hi, Product Manager. My name is Nancy Chu, your friendly PM leadership coach. I used to be a PM director at Roku and PM manager at Meta. Now I help clients ace L6 and above interviews at the top tech companies and thrive with more ease in their roles. Today, we're talking about how to think bigger in product sense questions like improve X. A lot of PM candidates approach these interview questions by listing feature gaps, which would result in solutions that are incremental and not very creative. And in this clip that you're about to see from a coaching session with a client, you will see another way. We use a strategic framing technique that narrows down the space with more clarity. And it sounds like this. My strategy is to lean into the strength, the thing that delights our users, that is hard for competitors to copy, and minimize our weaknesses so that we could be more competitive in the short term against direct competitors and in the long term against adjacent ones. This framing will help you think through and come up with a sharper understanding of what the product is really trying to do. And it'll help you with a clearer structure for making trade-offs and choosing what to focus on. And it's also a way that will help you stand out by connecting your product thinking to business and competitive dynamics. Watch how we apply this framing to the interview prompt, how would you improve Notion Calendar, and how using this framing can help you unlock more creative and high leverage ideas than traditional frameworks and scorecard could. Let's watch.
The problem space, for some reason for me, it's still very feature gaps. It's how would you improve Notion Calendar? Well, Notion Calendar doesn't support all of these things that professionals might need. Booking meeting rooms, for example.
Why do people use Notion Calendar or any calendaring tool?
To be able to manage their work life and personal life, from managing the events that they have to events with other people to maybe events at work.
And why would people use Notion over other calendars?
A couple of the biggest differentiation points that Notion Calendar has is it's designed to support both your work life and personal life, and designed very intentionally. One of the examples is that if you have an event in your personal calendar, it automatically creates a busy block on your work calendar so that people at work don't know what your conflict is, but they also can't book over it.
Why did Notion build it?
The founder of Notion Calendar wanted to create a new experience where people were more productive with their time.
How does it relate to Notion?
It relates to Notion because Notion wants to be this all-in-one productivity suite where not only can you do note-taking and create templates, but you can also manage emails and your time. And so Notion Calendar also links directly with your Notion, in which from Notion, you can surface a view of your Notion calendar. And then from Notion calendar, you can also directly link Notion docs in different meeting events without having to navigate different apps.
Right. So what is the user journey for someone who's going to a meeting?
I think someone going to a meeting, they would first set up the meeting. They would think through who to invite, send out invites for. This is kind of their culture, prepare a notes document and things for people to read ahead of time. They would send it out in an email for people. They might follow up with a reminder. Then they would go to the event, maybe reference that same document, maybe take notes somewhere else, then send out follow-up and meeting notes afterwards.
And then making sure the action items are actually done.
Yes.
So there's two main purposes of meetings. One is you want to align and make a decision. And two is you want to discuss what actions to take. And the decision comes first and then actions come later. But ultimately, it's about making sure the right work is done. But the calendar doesn't help you get the work done. So let's use our framework, leaning to the strength. It is integrated with Notion. So it has access to your knowledge base, and then it could facilitate meetings. It makes finding common time easier because if you have a personal appointment, it blocks it on your business calendar. Great. But then what happens afterwards? How is it making sure that the work gets done? It doesn't.
It doesn't, yeah. It's a manual process.
Right. So there we go. That's the weakness. The weakness is that it doesn't actually help you make sure the work gets done. How do we make sure that the work gets done? Yes, you can send out reminders and you can send out action items, but then people need time to do those things, right? Why not create calendar blocks so that people can actually follow through on their action items so that you don't have to manually schedule time to do work? And Notion knows when you're busy. Notion could just do this for you by looking at all the action items that you have identified across all of your meetings with assignees. You don't even need to send out reminders if Notion can just schedule time for you. And the project manager gets notified or has a view into the future. Okay, these action items are getting done by these people at these times. It's already been scheduled. And then if the work gets done, the calendar event has ended or you can extend it, but all of it goes back to making sure the right work gets done.
How come this way of approaching it comes up with so much better ideas?
Yeah.
Like traditional frameworks, it's so interesting.
Right. How would you describe how I came up with that? What's the framework?
Framework kind of starting out with the existing actions and motivations, right? So breaking down like why do people have meetings? Well, it's the crux is making sure that work is getting done. That's why we're setting up meetings and
yes, the right work gets done, not just work gets done.
The right work gets done. And so there's multiple steps. It involves creating alignment on decisions. It also involves discussing what actions to take. And right now, calendars can help just facilitate the meetings, but it doesn't actually help with getting the right work done. So if we're leaning into the strengths that we do have, oh, sorry, this is not framework, sorry, I was just repeating. And then so afterwards, we talk about what we do today, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, and how do we lean into our strengths and resolve some of our weaknesses.
So that we can be more competitive.
Who
do we compete with?
Direct competitors, Microsoft Outlook calendar, Google Calendar, maybe Apple Calendar. I think indirectly, there's also a whole swath of task management tools, project management tools, note takers that try to achieve some of this.
Perfect. So if Notion can help you come with the right time so that you're getting the right work done, and then the project managers has visibility into this, then you are not just competing with calendars, but you're also competing with the project management tools. So again, being competitive in the first degree and then expand to second degree. That's the framework.
Thank you, Nancy.
How do you feel now?
I feel very inspired. I definitely want to practice this framework a few times because I'm very stuck in the traditional.
Most people are, because that's what we know.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out like why this one is so much more effective.
Okay, why?
I think it might be because you're integrating the market perspective of like, who are the competitors, direct competitors and indirect competitors that tie directly to like how people are getting work done today. And maybe expanding, really thinking not just the actual steps and feature gaps, but the motivations and intentions of what people are trying to do to see like what are the biggest gaps.
Yeah. Notice that we don't really talk about persona.
Yeah.
But we can afterward. But notice that this approach kind of doesn't require a lot of prioritization.
Yeah.
Notice we didn't come up with any scores. We could come up with more granular persona after this. So basically, using the Notion example, we would have people getting the work done, and then we have a project manager persona. So basically, in the traditional framework, we would come up with some pain points, maybe some persona. You would pick a pain point, or you would pick a persona by coming up with different scores. And then we would come up with solutions, and then pick a solution. Why do we need to come up with a score is so that we can prioritize. By talking through leaning into the strength, minimize the weakness so that we could be more competitive in the first degree and expand to second degree. Why do we do that? That helps with prioritization. So there's two ways of prioritizing different elements in problem space. You could come up with a score, or you could use the approach that I just shared.
Yeah.
But the approach that I just shared involves more strategic thinking, so you're not leveraging random scores and then randomly picking.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, what you just watched is a different way to approach product sense and strategy interview questions. We didn't just list a bunch of pain points. We didn't use a scoring matrix, and yet we landed on a clear strategy with a unique differentiator and a more strategic bet. Here's what I hope you take away. Great strategy, or sounding more strategic, doesn't come from following frameworks. And at L6 level and above, your job isn't to incrementally improve a product, right? It's to reveal what the product was always meant to do but never quite did. And you can articulate that in a more strategic way that doesn't sound robotic by leaning into the strength of the company or the product, minimizing the weakness, and mapping how your product fits into the broader ecosystem of user behavior. And if this gave you a new way to think about product strategy, leave a comment below with your biggest aha and what you want me to break down next. And if you want to sharpen this kind of thinking for your next L6 and above interview, you can come to our next free monthly community roundtable, which is also linked below in the description. I hope to see you in our next roundtable and in our next video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button if you enjoyed this video. Take care.